What is up, guys? Welcome to Cinco Symposium. All right, man. So we got the View pushing a whole bunch of fun things like murdering politicians, and talking about the fact that we are in civil war right now. So we're gonna get into that. Just give you guys a heads up. I do have a T-shirt store that I'm making funny, political, and inspirational T-shirts. If you want to check that out, that'd be awesome. I'm trying to come up with designs and do things every single week, so it should be updated constantly. So check that out. If you like what I'm doing, please hit the like button, share the video. It really helps me grow and reach more people. But let's get into the video. So first of all, this happened last week with it was on The View with Jane Fonda, where she comes in and they're talking about politics. And so let's listen to what Jane Fonda has to say.
We have experienced many decades now of having agency over our body, of being able to determine when and how many children to have. We know what that feels like. We know what that's done for our lives. We're not going back. I don't care what the laws are. We're not going back.
So, I mean, it goes back to it's always back to the same old abortion argument, and that they want the right to kill their children for selfish needs. That's all it is. It's not about the safety. The rape cases, the cases where the mom or the baby is in trouble are insanely rare, less than 1%. And for the most part, people on the right are willing to go, you know what? Yeah, in that case, if the doctor is no crap telling you you're gonna die, a lot of them are willing to cede ground on that. But they don't care about that. They're just gonna say, we need control of our bodies. We need to kill our kids at any point in time that we want, and we don't care what the law says.
That's Jane speaking, and she probably will get a Nobel Prize.
But it's the truth.
She'll probably. I just these uppity Hollywood elitist type that I can't stand how they talk. Oh, she'll probably get a Nobel Prize. Oh, she's so great, isn't she? She's so great.
Very soon. It is the truth. But we're not going to do it.
Besides marching.
Well, you're not going to do it, Jane, because you're pretty old and crusty, and that uterus just ain't working. You don't have to worry about it.
And protesting. What else do you suggest?
Well, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a
murder.
What did you say?
Murder.
She's kidding.
Murder. So and I want you to pay attention to her face here, because she said, "Well, what do you think is the answer here?" And look at her face. She is dead serious. And it'll zoom in again. All these other people are this big laughter, ha 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 ha. We're talking about murdering our political opponents because they don't believe. We're pushing. I think they're right that we're pushing ever closely to a civil war, and this is the buildup. Everyone looks back at history and they read through it in 20 minutes of a few pages about Civil War, and it's they spanned a decade and a half of time, and so it doesn't feel like people don't understand that these things take time. They're a civil war can't happen. It's a buildup, and we are building up. We're building up. We're getting ever closer. Every little bit's just another sand on the heaping pile that's going to eventually come crumbling down. But
Wait a second. She's just kidding.
Don't say that.
oh, she's just kidding.
Up on that and
Yeah,
just run
that's
with
the
it.
word.
Look at her face.
Kidding.
She's just kidding.
On that.
They're trying really hard to push back. Oh, she's kidding. It's a joke.
Yeah,
Look at her face. She's kind of got the jaw locked. She's looking down. She's thinking about it. She's got someone in her mind that she's boot stomping and splashing their brains all over the road. That's that face.
that's the word.
She's just kidding.
Well, let me talk to you about.
And then she looks back again no, I'm not. And I believe her. She's not kidding. When people disagree with people on the left, I believe there's a lot more of them like this. When you talk about, and we're getting to the point where eventually it's going to start going after, people on the right are going to have that, because whenever you start coming after people's kids, whenever you tell me that the law changes or whatever it happens, that they're going to come take my kids away, if I don't agree that my kid thinks they're the opposite sex, and I'm not affirming that, if they're going to come take my kids away, I'm going to be having that look okay, game on, here we go. This is it. This is the start. So she ain't kidding.
Move on and talk about Jane's activism, which is
Let's avoid the fact that she just said we're going to kill our political opponents. That she's talking about that. Let's just forget about that fact. So no, Jane Fonda was absolutely not kidding. She was being 100% serious. And so that was last week, and then we just got this this is the other day on the 21st. And I don't even know this guy's name. Like, so first of all, you're gonna take this guy seriously. This is a dude that like puts makeup on and wears dresses. And then Tim Pool made a great tweet, just of you talking about how we're already in a civil war because they aren't allowed to have sex shows for kids, which is exactly right. Where people on the right are willing to go to war and willing to start killing people when it comes to like you coming in and taking their children for reasons like that, for not affirming like, you know, gender care stuff like that. That will be a civil war. Where people on the left are saying it needs to be a civil war because they won't allow kids to go to these sexual drag shows. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing split that's happened in very, very recent history. Because drag shows have been around for a long time. But it was always an adult theme. And no one ever gave a crap about them. Like, the people that didn't like the drag shows just don't like them. Like, okay, whatever. But they were never attempting to seek legislation or law or use political power to shut them down. They're just like, I don't want to be a part of it. And, you know, I'm not going to support maybe a store or a restaurant, whatever, that does do that. I'm just not going to do it. They are seeking power and authority to punish people that don't agree with their ideas of what should be legislated or not. So we're going to listen to this nut job.
Here in July of 2022,
yes,
we talked about how Florida Governor DeSantis had just filed a complaint against a bar called the R House that holds drag shows. Okay, 8 months later, things have only escalated. As we talk about it, you know, it's constant.
And so right there, pay attention. Drag shows have been around for a long time. There's never been legislation to shut them down, or at least not mainstream. Maybe you got a few examples of like individual counties or something like that. But to my knowledge, drag shows have been happening everywhere. I live in Texas, and there's always been, I've heard of drag shows happening. What's happening, what the legislation that's happening from right now is to keep kids from it. Not to stop the drag shows, just saying, hey, this is sexual nature. We need to protect our children. We don't allow our children to go to strip clubs. We shouldn't allow our children to go to drag shows. Simple enough.
Aggravation with this. What do you make of the fact that we're still talking about this and that it's happening in other states too, not just Florida?
Yeah,
there's this war against trans people, which
and
is
LGBTQ plus people and people who are othered
and cabaret people.
It's a circle of life.
So it's a war against them. It's a war against them. Now tell me, how are we warring against LGBTQ plus people? As far as I know, there's gay marriage is legal on the books. What else? Like, what else? How are they mistreated? How else are they not equal? You know, where is the war happening? The war is saying don't sexualize children. Like, and if like I said, if that's your push, if that's who you're gonna die, and yeah, we're gonna have a war because parents aren't going to just let you take their kids. That's where that's where people will really start losing their mind and get violent, is when you try to take their children. And yeah, so stay away from my kids. Stop sexualizing children. Stop using government taxpayer money to enforce your ideas or to push your ideas. That shouldn't be happening. If you have ideology, fine. If you're some crazy nut job that thinks it's okay to sexualize a child, which like even then it's like, okay, we stop pedophiles, right? We arrest pedophiles. So it's like, at what point do you draw a line and say that like this stuff needs to be stopped? But like I said, drag shows, just keep kids away from them. Drag shows have been happening for a long time. How's it a war on drag queens and all these trans people and all that stuff when it's just simply saying keep kids away from it?
Yeah.
Why
are they doing it?
For power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything is about power, and you could always trace it back to the money. You say that all the time.
Yeah. Follow the money.
It's follow the money, follow the power at any cost. It's very hypocritical. You know, the leading cause of death in children are guns.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're guns.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question. So guns leading. I'd like to see the stats on that. Like, I know there's a lot of accidents and things that happen with kids, and we can have a conversation about that. Maybe we need to do firearms training for kids in school. Maybe that should happen. Maybe kids should understand the dangers of a gun, and they should be taught how to use one and how to properly handle one so accidents don't happen, and safety rules such as that nature. But he talks about follow the money, and I find it interesting because we talk about this whole transgenderism debate and the fact that if you start kids on puberty blockers, you jack up their whole their whole hormone system, the endocrine system, everything about their body, their development and you're making them lifelong patients, and then they're going to start trying to get surgeries, and then you got to constantly work on, like, there's surgeries after surgeries, and even after you have surgeries on like, there's still more surgeries, there's therapy beyond, there's pills. You make that child a lifelong patient. You tell me what makes more money, something like maybe a gun or two here and there, or for a kid or something like, or, you know, buying bullets, but a lifetime of having to go medical expenses. Everyone bitches about the fact that our medical system here in the United States is it's unbelievable. It charges so much, and they're trying to put these kids and force them to be lifetime patients when they're not 18, when they can't, they're not the age of consent. They can't consent on anything else, to drink alcohol, to smoke tobacco, to have sex, but we're telling them that they can chop up their body parts, their normal function body parts, and that's okay. And that they're going to have to be, like I said, lifetime medical pay. Follow the money? Okay, follow that. That's where the money's going, is the medical field and this transgenderism push. That's where the money's going.
I know it's the morning and I'm not supposed to be screaming, but they're guns.
Yeah.
Not drag queen.
Not drag queens.
No.
Leave us alone.
Leave you alone. We did. Drag queens have been left alone for decades upon decades. No one cared. Now you're involving children. Now we care.
You know, and it's a distraction. It's a distraction on purpose. We don't know what to pay. We don't know what to pay attention to. You know, our justice system is convoluted. It's hard to understand on purpose. Let's be clear about that. Yeah. It's on purpose. You know, it was like when we were talking about Roe v. Wade, that the word codified came up. I was like, what is that? Yeah. And y'all didn't do it for 50 years? Yeah. What's happening? Yeah. You know.
Also in the world is nail polish. You just can't take this guy seriously.
If one of us is subpoenaed, and we don't go, we end up in jail,
You
right?
get a little perp walk. You get a little
What
perp
are
walk.
we talking about, and what are we doing? And everybody's so scared because, oh, if we do that, then we might have a civil war. We're already in a civil war, y'all. It's a civil war of the mind. They're messing with our minds. We're already in it.
So, I mean, as where I kind of agree. I kind of agree with them that hey, we might, like, when we look in the history books, and people read, like, 100 years from now, if there's a war that happens, they'll start reading about that stuff was happening right now that led up to it. You know, there was a peaceful divorce in our Civil War where I can't remember exactly how many states actually seceded, and nothing happened for years. Nothing happened for a long time. It takes a long time. So I just find it interesting because there's so many people that tell me all the time, like, oh, it can't happen. I'm like, bro, it's already happening. It's happening. There's civil wars happening in countries across the world all the time, and they've happened in many countries multiple times. It's honestly just a matter of time. We've never had a system of government that's lasted. Every system of government has fallen apart at some point or another throughout history. And to believe that we figured it out, like, I think the forefathers made an insanely great one. But even them, they knew, and that's why the Second Amendment was put in there. They knew that eventually systems become tyrannical, and that's why they put the Second Amendment in there, so that people could at least had a chance to fight back and to stop that tyrannical government and try to at least restart or reset. So even like the system, one of the best systems that's been in place, like the best system that's been put in place in the history of the world, it's falling apart right now. It's falling apart. And it's already fallen apart. I mean, we already had the Civil War, like I said. And so, yeah, like, we're probably in the beginning stages of it right now. And when they read in the history books, this will be the beginning stages. And so we're probably technically already in one. And I believe he's right about that. And I think it's amazing that people they can't see it. They can't understand that fact that, it takes time. It's not just like, tomorrow's going to happen, flip's going to switch, and they're like, oh, Civil War time, baby, here we go. But yeah, so I mean, it's getting pushed mainstream. The View is is a huge channel or program that influences and millions of viewers watching. Like, this is what's being said. So, like, it's ramping up on both sides. Things are getting ramped up. And if you want to be safe, I would always advise people to have emergency food on standby, have emergency supplies. Definitely, when stuff hits the fan, you're gonna want a gun. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, you're gonna want a gun. But if people on the left don't want to get guns, then okay, like, whatever. I can't force you to do that. I don't want to force my views on you. It's you who want to force your views on me. But anyways, that's that. The View's crazy. Bunch of hens up there clucking away. Rich elitist people. Can't stand them. just gross. And a lot of their guests are kind of weird people I don't take seriously anyways. But yeah, I do take him. I don't take this guy seriously for the most part, but I believe he is right about the Civil War thing. I think we're there. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Please hit that like button. Until next time, y'all have a wonderful day.